الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. Today we completed Surah Al-Nahl, which we started yesterday. That's a Meccan surah. We then recited Surah Al-Isra, also known as Surah Bani Israel, followed by Surah Al-Kahf. All three surahs are Meccan. In the portion that we completed today of Surah Al-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the importance of fulfilling one's promises and the evil of breaking one's word. Other words of advice are given. Allah then speaks about the disbelievers who were taunting the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca and accusing him of learning the Qur'an from other sources and other scriptures and then merely translating it into Arabic. Allah answers that claim and then speaks about the evil nature of these individuals, and that Allah has actually sealed their hearts, and because they have given preference to the worldly life over the hereafter. Other verses are also mentioned, which Allah mentions some halal and haram things. Towards the end of the surah, Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, and then instructs the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to invite to the way of Allah with wisdom and good counsel, and speak to people in the best way possible. In this, towards the end, Allah also speaks about Makkah al-Mukarramah, a city which was content and secure and rich, but when they opposed the Prophet ﷺ, Allah punished them by removing that sense of security and peace and by inflicting hunger upon them. And this is the way Allah punishes people in the long term. We then read Surah Al-Isra, regarding which I said that it's also known as Surah Bani Israel. Again, it's a surah of the Meccan period. In the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all speaks about the miraculous journey of Isra and then later on Mi'raj from Makkah al-Mukarramah to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. And in relation to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, since Jerusalem is being spoken about, Allah mentions a brief history of Banu Israel, the children of Israel, but only a specific part, which is that how Allah had already informed them in their scriptures that you will create mischief upon the earth, and each time you will create mischief, Allah will punish you by sending against you mighty servants of His. And Allah speaks about how those promises were fulfilled in the past, and they will continue to be fulfilled in the future if they return to their tyranny and aggression. Allah speaks about some of His signs in His creation, and generally how the people of the past were destroyed whenever they opposed their Prophet ﷺ. Then for a number of verses, Allah Azza wa Jal advises the readers, advises the believers to do and to avoid certain things. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs that Allah has instructed that you worship only Him, and that you be kind to your parents, that you humble before them, that you pray for them, that you fulfill the rights of your relatives and the poor and the traveller, and you do not be extravagant in your expenditure. Those who are extravagant are the brothers of the shayateen, and shaitan is ungrateful to his Lord. When you spend, i.e. in charity, then do so moderately, like with everything else. Do not be so tight-fisted that it is as though you are clasping and fastening your hands to your throat. And do not open your arms out so wide and give away everything that you have, that in the end you yourself become needy. Do not kill your children for the fear of poverty and having to feed them in the future. Do not come close to adultery. Do not kill that soul which Allah has made sacred. And do not go close to the wealth of the orphans. When you weigh and measure and trade amongst yourselves, and weigh and measure and mark your goods and your produce with justice and properly and honestly. Do not pursue those things of which you have no knowledge, i.e. do not listen to everything, and do not apply your mind and your heart to everything. Do not think about everything. Do not try to see everything. Verily, the eyes, the ears and the heart, all of these things will be questioned by Allah on the day of reckoning. Do not walk arrogantly upon the earth, for you will never be able to rip open the earth, nor will you ever be able to reach the heights of the mountains. All of these things are evil in the sight of your Lord, and these are words of wisdom which your Lord has revealed to you. Other verses are also mentioned about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praise and his tasbih is hymned by everything in his creation. And when the Prophet ﷺ recites the Qur'an, then those who do not believe, Allah Azza wa Jalla actually places a veil over their hearts so that they can hear the Qur'an, but they do not understand what's contained therein. When the pagan Arabs used to constantly ask the Prophet ﷺ for evidence as to about how they would be resurrected, Allah answers some of those questions. Allah instructs the believers and says, Say, O Prophet ﷺ, to my servants, that when they speak, they say that which is the best, for verily Shaytan tries to draw a division between them. See, what we say means so much. One word, one sentence can cause so much harm and damage, and therefore we should be careful about what we say to everybody. Shaytan will exploit our words to create divisions between us. Allah then speaks about the creation of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salatu salam, Shaytan's refusal to prostrate to him, and the ensuing conversation between Allah and Shaytan. Allah boasts about His favour to His creation, how He looks after them and protects them, and especially when they are travelling on the seas, when they fear the winds, the storm, when they fear the waves, the water, and they are very eager to reach the safety of the shore. On such occasions, when they are convinced that they are about to die and drown, they turn to Allah wahdahu la shareek in seeking His succour and assistance. Yet, as soon as they reach the safety of the shore, they turn away from Allah. Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks about how Allah can destroy them both on the land and on the sea. If Allah wishes to inflict His punishment on them, this could be anywhere at any time. So why trust in Allah and turn to Him at times and not at others? Further advice is given to the Prophet ﷺ about salah, both during the day and tahajjud at night, and the du'as that the Prophet ﷺ should make, how Allah Azza wa Jalla has made the Qur'an a means of cure and a means of mercy for the believers, how man, when Allah bestows His favour upon him, he turns away from Allah, but the moment evil touches him or a calamity befalls him, he becomes all despondent and despairing. Allah also answers a question raised by some people as to the reality of the spirit. Allah says, the spirit, the ruh, is a matter of my Lord, and you have not been given but very little knowledge. Allah then speaks about the pagan Arabs, how they made unreasonable demands from the Prophet ﷺ in order to believe. They said, we will never believe until you cause a river to flow miraculously here on this barren earth, or until you have a lush orchard of date palms and of groves of wine and grapes, and then in these gardens and orchards you have many springs, streams and rivers. Or we will never believe in you until you actually break a piece of the heavens and cause it to fall down upon us, or until you bring Allah and the angels before our very eyes, or until you have a palace or a large house of gold, or until you actually rise miraculously to the heavens. And even if you do rise miraculously to the sky, we will never still believe in you until you actually come back with a book that we read. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in reply, say to them, subhanallah, I am but a messenger and a human being. Allah then speaks about the signs that He had given Banu Israel and other signs in His creation. Then at the end of the surah, Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks favourably about those who have been given knowledge, and who, when they hear the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being recited, they fall down into prostration and they hymn His praise, and when they do so in humbleness and in all humility. Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ to pray and call out to Him with His beautiful names in a certain way, and to pray to Him in a certain way, and then praising Himself and announcing His glory and His oneness. Allah Azza wa Jalla ends the surah, Surah Al-Isra. We then read Surah Al-Kahf. We didn't complete it, we read most of it today. Surah Al-Kahf is a very famous surah of the Qur'an. There is a great virtue in reciting the surah on Jumu'ah, and the contents are varied. There are four main stories in Surah Al-Kahf, amongst other contents. We don't have time, so I'll just mention the main stories. But the first story is about the people of the cave, and upon this story the surah has been named the cave. These were a group of young men who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who turned away from the customs of their people. Their people were disbelievers, and they discovered that they were only a handful, and people were not listening to them and to their invitation to the way of Allah. Their families rejected them, their relatives, their entire nation, including the leaders, the king, the ruler, and the subjects. And they discovered that they faced such a large enemy. well, they faced such an enemy in such large numbers. In any case, when they despaired of the iman and the faith of their people, they retreated to a cave with the intention of worshipping Allah in seclusion. Because the time wasn't right for them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala separated them from the people, and Allah caused them to go to sleep. They thought they had slept only for part of the day when they woke up, but in reality Allah kept them asleep miraculously for 309 years. When they woke up, they thought everything was still the same. One of them was sent with some money to purchase some food. When he arrived in the marketplace and descended from the mountain, from the cave, the scenery had changed, the people had changed, everything had changed, and he found it very strange. And when he presented the money in order to purchase some food, the sellers noticed that these coins were more than 300 years old. So they began questioning him. When he replied, he then told them the whereabouts of the others. They went and fetched them, and then these people were questioned about their past, their reality, and soon the miraculous nature of their existence became clear for the rest of the people. Times had changed, the hearts had changed, and people now began to believe in Allah. And because of the barakah and the sincerity of this small group of young men, the entire nation accepted Islam, and they believed in Allah. And these people were hailed and raised as trustworthy, learned, pious people, and they lived and died with respect. This is the first story mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. Other words of advice are given about patience and about praying and not saying anything without saying inshaAllah, etc., about the truth being from Allah, about how Allah has prepared gardens for the people of Jannah. The second story is about two men from the people of the past. One of them was rich and the other was poor. The rich one took the poor one on a tour of his properties and explained to him how rich and how powerful he was and how blessed he was in wealth and in children, etc., etc. And he boasted of these things in such a way that caused the other to feel low and humiliated and disgraced. And the other one reminded him that do not speak boastfully in this way, lest Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the person in his arrogance continued to say that I don't believe there is a life in the hereafter, and if there is, then I trust in Allah that He will bless me with wealth and children and with status there, just as He has done so in the world. So the poor man tried to advise him that do not speak in this way, lest Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His anger destroys all your property and possessions and leaves you with nothing. And that's exactly what happened. Allah then speaks about the reality of worldly life, the reality of children and family and wealth, that these are just merely the ornamentations of worldly life, and the things that will remain with Allah are pious good deeds. Allah then speaks about the creation of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and finally Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and his journey, very eventful journey with Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam. This is the third of the four main stories, and the fourth story is that of Dhul Qarnayn. Because we only read part of the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and Sayyidina Khidr, inshallah we'll complete that tomorrow. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala abdihi wa rasulih nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
This lecture was given by Shaykh Abu Yusuf Riyadh al-Haq and has been presented to you by Al-Kawthar Productions. For further information, additional lectures and books, contact us on 0121 773 5191 or alternatively by post at Al-Kawthar Productions, P.O. Box 6008, Birmingham, B10 0UW, United Kingdom, or visit our website at www.alkawtharacademy.org. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.